Hey everyone, and welcome back. So in the last video, we looked at how to measure the width and the depth of a sculpture like this. And in this video, I'm going to show you how to measure the height. The reason why I'm doing a separate video dedicated entirely to how to measure heights is because I want you to understand the principle behind it. I want you to be able to apply this principle to all kinds of sculptures and not only to just this piece. By the way, if you're interested in having a plaster cast of this piece yourself, I have the mold so I can make extra casts. So if you want one, leave a message here below, send me an email. You can find it at my website. I'll put the link in the description here below, or send me a DM on my Instagram and we'll discuss all the details there. So now, before showing you how to take the measurement of the height, I would like you to pause the video for a minute and think how you would go about that. And again, try to challenge yourself. It's not about how to measure specifically this head. Let's say that you're doing something bigger. Let's say that you're measuring a human model, a live model, and you need to have the exact height of that person in that exact position. How would you go about it? I want you to think about it and try to figure out what would be the best way. And I'm going to show you what I think is the best, most efficient, and most versatile method of doing that. Okay, so I hope that you thought about it, and I'm actually curious to know how you would go about it. If you would like to share it, leave a comment, tell me how you think that you would measure a piece, or how do you do it usually. But let's see what the possibilities are and the problems of the different methods. So for example, if we have a meter like this, it's a bit flexible, and so the highest point of the sculpture is this one. Okay, that is positive, that this is the highest point. We need to measure the point. The problem is that if I place the meter here and I go up, I have a bit of an idea of the exact measurement. It could be somewhere between 49 and 51, but I'm not sure about what the exact measurement to the millimeter is. Of course, also there is the perspective that wouldn't allow me to get a right measurement. Also because the measure in this case is at the center of the sculpture and not at a projection point. I'm very able to measure the most projecting part of the sculpture, which is the tip of the ear, because I can actually touch it with a meter. That's 38 centimeters, but I cannot get to the exact height of that point. So let's discard this method. The other one would involve a meter like this. And actually, it's the same problem. This is a bit less flexible, but it's still very flexible. And also, we have the problem of the perspective. How do I know if I'm exactly looking at that point, or I'm lower? I might have different measurements of him. I'm looking from above, I might see a different point. So we need to get exactly that point, and then again we have the problem of the perspective. Let's say that the highest point is 50. And if we're holding it like this, I'm measuring actually that same point, but it's a higher number here because there is an angle and the distance is longer. So this is also a problem. You could try to hold it straight, but still it's very difficult. So this is discarded as well. So we have seen that with the previous two methods, the main problem was the perspective. We couldn't really get that right 90-degree angle with respect to this point. Some of you probably thought of a level. So something like this, you could place it somewhere here to find that balance. Right? There you go. That's level. But the problem is that your platform needs to be level as well. And I mean, you could do that. Measure the distance from the board to the bottom of the level. And in this case here, it's 49.4 centimeters. Let's see if this is the case also on the other side. It should be. And yes, that's 49.4. So this is a relatively doable method, especially when you're dealing with such a simple sculpture. But again, what if you're having a live model who is standing for you in a somewhat uncomfortable position, or a different sculpture that is a bit more complicated. So we need to find the principle that we can apply in all circumstances and in all situations. So how I would go about it is by using two, not one, but 2 meters, such as this one, preferably 2 similar meters. And obviously, because they are similar, they have the same measurements indicated, they're perfectly parallel. So the principle is that if I place these 2 meters next to each other, every number will be perfectly in line with the other number on the other meter, right? So the basic idea would be now to put one in front of the sculpture and one at the back of the sculpture, and then lowering yourself and using your eye as a level and matching those numbers together to see which number matches its respective number on the other side by slightly touching the highest point of the sculpture. I'll show you in a minute what I mean by this, but one of the problems of this is that you will have to hold the 2 meters yourself, and we still have the problem, the issue of the angle. So what I like to do is to attach these 2 rulers on 2 strong squares so that they can stand perfectly straight. And let me show you how I do that. So you take a square like this one that can stand by itself, and then you attach the ruler onto it, and you can use these clamps just to place it and hold it onto the square. Better 2, then we know for sure that it's straight. And you do the same with the other one as well. There you go. So now we have 2 perfectly straight rulers. They are standing by themselves. And what we can do now is place one here at the front of the sculpture and another one at the back of the sculpture. They are now perfectly aligned, so you don't see the one at the back. I'm just going to place it here. You can see it projecting out here. And then you would place yourself here in front of the sculpture and try to find the 2 same measurements that touch the highest point of the sculpture. So you close one of your eyes and then you slowly go down until you see that the same 2 numbers are just slightly touching the highest point of the sculpture. Now let's zoom in so that I can show you how it should look like from your point of view. Okay, so this is where we are. You can see that the 2 rulers are placed parallel to each other. One is at the front and one is at the back. And if we zoom in and we look at the specific situation that we want to measure, so now you can see how those numbers are not really aligned. You can see how the 50 on the front is now aligned with the 49 of the back over there. So that is not in line. And obviously there is nothing that we can do about the rulers. We need to adjust the height of our position from which we look at the 2 rulers. So if we go down, and you can see how the 50 is starting to align with the other 50. This clearly tells us that the head, the highest point of the sculpture, is not 50, it's below it. Could it be 49 and a half? I don't think so, but then let's see what happens if we align the 2 49 and a halves. Now the 2 49 and a halves are also almost aligned, but we see that the sculpture is lower than that. So we need to find the 2 exact same measurements that are aligned and that also touch the highest point of the sculpture. So now the 2 49s are aligned. You can see that they are perfectly aligned. This is the 49 in the front, and that is the 49 at the back. And they just come slightly above the sculpture. Now we're going to play it safe, and we can say that the height of the sculpture is 49 in this case. 49 in the front and 49 at the back. And that is how you measure the height of the sculpture. So we have just measured 49, exactly 49. But if you watched carefully before, when we measured it with the level, it was 49.4. So you might ask, where is the difference coming from? Well, remember, you need to be very precise when doing these things and keep in mind everything that you're doing. So we have placed the ruler here on top of the square, and the square has a basis which has a width, and probably the width of this square is somewhere between 4 millimeters. So that's why it was 49.4 before, and now it's 49 exactly. Add the 4 millimeters of the basis of the square and we'll come up with the same measurement. Now this was a simple method that you can apply yourself. You don't need the help of anyone else. But of course, if you're doing a live model, a higher figure, then you would need to be at least with two. Use the same method with the squares, but then you need longer rulers. The foldable ones are ideal, and please be with two people at least to hold them exactly straight. But this is the general idea behind this principle. So it's not difficult. It just needs to be practiced a couple of times just to get the hang of the system, to understand how to look between the two rulers to shift the focus, just as I did with the camera. Your eye is also able to shift the focus from the front to the back and see if the two measurements align. So combined with what we have seen in the previous video, we know that this plaster cast is 27 centimeters deep, 22 centimeters wide, and 49.5 centimeters high. So now you could go and order a piece of stone with these dimensions for this piece. I would still advise you to add a centimeter to those measurements just to be safe, and then you're good to go. And don't forget, if you're interested in having your own plaster cast of this sculpture, I can get one for you, so get in touch. So this was it for today. I hope this video was helpful. For those who are interested, I started a series of online courses. I know that online stone carving courses might seem a bit counterintuitive, but believe me, I have realized that video is a great way to teach sculpture. It's actually better than reading a book about sculpture, because then I can really show you how I approach things. And I have courses about letter carving. There are also some other courses coming up about carving little Baroque heads, flower ornaments, grotesque masks, even stonemasonry exercises, you name it. They will be all on the website. You can check them out at www.sculpturechannel.com. I'll put the link in the description down below. And if you take one, you'll be able to carve one of those exercises by yourself with my video guidance. And we can also video call to have some feedback on what you're doing. And you'll have a lifetime access to the content, so no rush. You can work on your piece at your own pace. Go check that out if you're interested. And if you have any questions, comments, remarks about what we have discussed today, please let me know. Leave a comment down here below. As always, I'm Athar, and I'll see you next time.